We'll tell you about the main news at 9 a.m. this Friday on TSN. We're looking forward to your comments on the broadcast and would appreciate your subscription. A massive strike on Kyiv. According to preliminary reports, 3 people have been killed and at least 24 injured. These are the figures from the rescue services. Among the injured are a pregnant woman and a 10-year-old child. One of those hospitalized is in serious condition. Last night, the Russians attacked the Ukrainian capital with missiles and attack drones. 9 apartment buildings were damaged. Their walls are pierced, roofs destroyed, windows shattered, and there are numerous fires at the sites of impact and where debris fell. Due to the fires in the apartment buildings, rescuers had to evacuate more than 100 people. In the Desnyanskaya district, 1 person was killed. There, the fire engulfed the building from the 5th to the 8th floors. 14 residents were rescued. 1 person was pulled out from under the rubble. During the massive shelling of the capital, the Russians struck residential buildings, medical facilities, schools, non-residential structures, burned down a sports complex, and destroyed cars. There have been hits in almost every district of Kyiv. The city authorities report damage to sections of the heating networks. On the left bank, some buildings have been left without heating. Some trolleybus and bus routes have also been cancelled. Here is what TSN correspondent Natalka Nahorna saw at the impact sites in the Shevchenkivsky district of Kyiv.
These are civilian sites that were damaged in the Shevchenkivsky district of the capital. These include a market, candy shops, a mobile phone store, and pharmacies. And all these places have suffered more than once before.
It was extremely loud and noisy at night, and every 5 minutes or so, we didn't know where to go. It was just terrifying. There are no words. Such emotions. It's very hard to go through this.
The mobile phone kiosk. Last time there was a scandal here. They were figuring out whether things had disappeared. Phone cases and accessories were missing. The coffee shop was hit again. I don't know how many times it's been smashed.
3 people were injured in the Dnipropetrovsk region. The enemy launched a massive drone attack on the Sinelnikivsky district. 2 private houses were destroyed. More than 10 were damaged. A business, infrastructure facilities, and cars were also damaged. The occupiers shelled Nikopol and neighboring communities with artillery and drones. Domestic animals were killed. A farm was damaged. A private house caught fire and 2 more were damaged. 1 person was killed and 3 were injured in the Kherson region. 35 settlements in the region came under enemy fire. Nearly 20 private houses, a store, an administrative building, and public transport were destroyed. In Kherson, the Russians once again remotely scattered Petal anti-personnel mines. Residents are being urged to stay vigilant. Zelensky has approved the imposition of sanctions against businessmen Timur Mindich and Alexander Zuckerman, who have found themselves at the center of a corruption investigation. A decree was published on the president's website by which Zelensky enacted the corresponding decision of the National Security and Defense Council. As follows from the appendix to the decree, Mindich and Zuckerman are citizens of Israel, to which, according to media reports, they departed right before the Anti-Corruption Bureau announced the accusations. 2 more individuals involved in the Nabu case regarding corruption around Energoatom, Justice Minister Herman Halushchenko and Energy Minister Svetlana Rinchuk, submitted their resignations the day before. The Verkhovna Rada will consider their dismissals on November 18th. The High Anti-Corruption Court has chosen a preventive measure for another figure in the Energoatom case, private entrepreneur Lyudmila Zorin, 2 months in custody or bail set at 12 million hryvnias. According to investigators, Zorina worked in the back office and was involved in money laundering. During searches, more than $105,000 were found in her possession, which significantly exceeds her official income. The High Anti-Corruption Court also set bail for 3 other suspects in the corruption case: Ihor Mironiuk, Dmitro Ubasov, and Ihor Fursenko. They were taken into custody with the option to be released on bail. The Baltic and Northern European countries have announced joint purchases of weapons for Ukraine from the United States. They plan to allocate $500 million for this. And the European Union will transfer 6 billion euros to our country. The aid was announced by the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. By the end of the year, the European Union promises Kyiv about 18 billion euros, which will be covered by the profits from frozen Russian assets. Amid the corruption scandal that erupted in Ukraine, a number of European officials commented on the appropriateness of providing aid. For example, the Lithuanian finance minister stated, "These events will not be a reason to refuse support for our country." And the Dutch finance minister reminded that the fight against corruption must remain a constant task for Kyiv. All state-owned companies in Ukraine, including those in the energy sector, will be audited. This was stated by Prime Minister Yulia Sviridenko in her address. This will be done against the backdrop of a high-profile corruption scandal surrounding Energoatom.
We have already made the first decision. Yesterday, I submitted a motion to the Ukrainian parliament for the dismissal of the Minister of Justice and the Minister of Energy. So, today, the government submitted a proposal to the National Security and Defense Council regarding sanctions against the individuals mentioned in Nabu's materials who have harmed Ukraine's energy security. The President has already signed the corresponding decree. Together with the Minister of Economy, we have launched a set of measures to relaunch Energoatom, including the Supervisory Board and the company's management. We have terminated the powers of the current Supervisory Board, suspended from duty the management and employees who are under suspicion or are being investigated by law enforcement agencies, and initiated a state audit. We are adopting a comprehensive solution regarding all state-owned companies, primarily those in the energy sector. The government has instructed the supervisory boards to check the state of the company's operations, in particular regarding the conduct of state procurement. We are conducting an inspection of all companies.
You are watching TSN. To stay up to date with the main news, subscribe to our YouTube channel and turn on notifications. Well, I continue with the news broadcast. Less than 10 kilometers from the front line. This is how the engineers of the 118th Brigade work to set up artillery positions as quickly as possible. In a single day, the heavy equipment endures about a dozen enemy attacks. TSN correspondent Daria Nazarova managed to see how, despite all this, work is in full swing.
While the sky is clear of enemy drones, the engineers of the 118th Mechanized Brigade are busy setting up positions. Very soon, a revetment for a self-propelled artillery unit will be ready here. The excavator speeds up the process significantly, but it also has its drawbacks. The first and most important is that the machine is hard to hide from enemy FPV drones. To protect themselves from them, the guys use a drone detector, which they've nicknamed
the sixth sense, often called the intuitive sense. This right here.
Detector has already saved the engineers' lives more than once.
And we saw that it was flying. It probably followed us for 4 kilometers. And we had already gone down into the ravine. Either it lost connection or maybe its battery just died. So it crashed there.
However, the equipment itself also suffers from Russian attacks. In April, an engineer's tractor burned down during shelling. The soldiers miraculously were not harmed.
They hid in the dugout and the tractor got hit by grads and burned down. And
recently, a Russian aerial bomb fell right next to this excavator. The vehicle was riddled with shrapnel, but it has already been repaired, and new glass has been installed. But the guys still keep finding traces of the shelling in the vehicle.
They didn't notice it right away because they saw that there had been some kind of hit somewhere. But where and when, they didn't know. Because they saw the damage to the body of the vehicle and found a small metal fragment in the cab.
The soldier with the call sign mechanic has been in the engineering troops for 3 years. He didn't go to defend the country alone.
My younger brother was drafted too, in January. He's a sapper, a drone operator. Somewhere near Kramatorsk, the older one was in the ATO. Mostly, I work with engineering equipment.
During his service, Mechanic and his comrades have set up around 200 artillery positions. The work is important because the level of protection for the soldiers depends on the engineers. That's why the guys work in any conditions. They worry most about the equipment, without which building fortifications is simply impossible. Daria Nazarova, Andrei Kupovka, Zaporizhzhia, TSN 1+1.
He used his disability as cover to pass through checkpoints and gather coordinates of energy facilities and defense plants. In the Dnipropetrovsk region, a man suspected of working for the enemy has been detained. He is a resident of Pavlohrad who held pro-Russian views. On orders from the occupiers, he spied in his hometown and the surrounding area. His main task was to find out where the workshops producing combat drone systems were located. In addition, the man filmed the perimeter of electrical substations. The court has already sent him to a pre-trial detention center without the right to bail. He faces life imprisonment for state treason. Theft of food supplies at a military unit in the Kyiv region. Employees of the State Bureau of Investigation, in cooperation with the Security Service of Ukraine, uncovered a scheme to embezzle food products worth over 3 million hryvnias. The head of the military unit's canteen involved the canteen instructor and a driver in the scheme. Some of the food products were not used in meal preparation but were stockpiled for later sale. The stolen goods were transported in a service vehicle to points of sale. During the searches, the State Bureau of Investigation seized over 600 kilograms of meat, 80 kilograms of fish, 60 kilograms of sausage, and more than 100 kilograms of cheese. The court imposed a preventive measure on the suspects in the form of detention, with the possibility of bail set at nearly 1 million hryvnias per person. Investigators are also checking the possible involvement of other officials from the unit. The accused in the murder of Irina Farion has had their arrest extended for another 2 months, without bail. This is exactly the preventive measure the prosecution requested. Meanwhile, the lawyers of 19-year-old Vyacheslav Zinchenko once again petitioned for house arrest. The court did not support their arguments. The well-known linguist was killed last summer in the courtyard of her building. The shooter fled, but very soon the police detained Zinchenko, a student from Dnipro. Currently, witnesses in the case are being questioned behind closed doors for security reasons. In particular, today the court heard from the owner of the apartment that Zinchenko rented in Lviv. In Germany, social benefits for Ukrainians may be reduced. This was agreed upon by the German government. Several German media outlets are reporting this. According to the new rules, Ukrainians who arrive in the country after April 1st, 2025, will no longer receive the so-called citizens' benefit. Previously, this amount was 563 euros per month, with additional payments for housing and utilities. Ukrainian citizens who arrived after April 1st of this year will be considered asylum seekers. As a result, they will receive approximately 440 euros per month. There will also be certain restrictions on access to integration courses. Thus, the nearly 4-year period of special status for Ukrainian refugees in Germany is coming to an end. The new rule is expected to be approved next week. A charging device exploded. In the village of Novosilki in the Kyiv region, a family with 2 small children was injured. As a result of the explosion, a fire broke out in an apartment on the 23rd floor. Due to heavy smoke in the stairwell, 62 people were trapped. Rescuers evacuated them from the building. 2 children and their father were hospitalized with a preliminary diagnosis of smoke inhalation. The State Emergency Service reminds everyone about safety rules and urges the use of only certified chargers and batteries. That was the latest update as of this moment. Don't miss our upcoming TSN broadcasts to stay informed about current events.